Good morning. Glad to be here with you today to talk about a subject that I'm very excited to speak about constantly, and that's compassion. Because I've learned that life is a perceptual game, and it's what you see, and I look for compassion in the world, and there's lots of it, and I usually don't find it on CNN and Fox, but there's many places just within our communities. I've had a very fortunate life, and when I'm giving a microphone, I don't stop, so just let me know. I grew up with 5 sisters, and I never got a word in edgewise. So now when I get the opportunity to talk, I like to talk. But I was raised with a wonderful family, and I went the scientific route, because ever since I was a little boy, I saw things as energy. I saw auric fields, and I never knew any different. And so I pursued molecular biology because I wanted to understand the essence of who we are on a molecular level. And what I learned is just the beautiful divinity built in us, whether it's in the molecular, cellular, organ, or organism level, that we are truly divine beings of God. And the more that I realized what was going on in the physical, it helped me understand what was going on in the unseen or the metaphysical aspect of ourselves. So I see us as beings of light, as beings of energy. And as beings of light, what we have the unique ability to do is we get to convert energy all day long. Through our thoughts, through our words, through our beliefs, through our actions. We're energy converters. So when certain things happen to us, we have a choice. We have free will. We can increase that vibration toward love, or we can lower the vibration toward fear. And compassion is an aspect of love. And the center of our energetic universe is our heart chakra. And recently I published a book on the chakras, and I look at each chakra and present it as a transformational center. Your lower 3 chakras are associated with transforming emotions, and your upper 3 chakras are associated with transforming thought. But dead center in your energetic universe is your heart. And your heart is your transformational center of belief. It's merging the emotions of your lower chakras with the thoughts of your upper chakras. And this is the most powerful aspect of our being. Even scientists now can measure the electromagnetic field of your body, and it's 5,000 times greater in your heart than it is even in your brain. So this is truly the center of creation. And it's the center of our power. And it's the center where we can really show the essence of who we truly are. Our heart chakra has to do with love, compassion, and kindness. And an aspect of love comes first with loving yourself. And self-love is very important because in our culture, over the years, we've been taught sometimes that it might look selfish to do things for yourself, to honor yourself, and to love yourself. But just as you get on the airplane, they say, put your oxygen on yourself first and then help assist others. Well, energetically, love yourself and honor yourself first, because the greater amount you can love yourself, the more you have to give to others. And again, if you look anatomically, I was an anatomy professor. If you look anatomically at the heart, it's part of the circulatory system. It circulates. Well, your heart chakra circulates love. The more that you receive, the more you have to give. And the great teacher, Jesus, taught us to give is to receive, and to receive is to give. And so essentially, as an energy transformer, we're transforming love. We're circulating love in all aspects of our being. Now, there's been many great teachers that have come relative to love. I'm going to focus on 2 today with the limited time. Buddha, who is the great teacher of detachment, and Jesus the Christ, who is the great teacher of love and forgiveness. Because I feel that those both really encompass what compassion is. In the Buddhist culture, they basically define compassion as something that is felt, something is cultivated. And Gina's beautiful song to lead into this is perfect. Couldn't you all feel that in your hearts? I mean, that's what compassion is. It's the essence of feeling. And why is it important to have compassion? Well, compassion is an important component to achieve enlightenment. Because when we know who we truly are, we are enlightened. We already are perfect, whole, and complete. It's just we don't always remember that. And our ideal to come to life is to remove the barriers that we've forgotten who we truly are. And compassion is one of those tools in our toolbox we can use to really excavate the essence of our soul and know who we are. So compassion, if you got to look up in the dictionary, it's a mental state of wishing others no longer suffer. And it's a feeling, a sense of closeness, of community. And I think of the universal principle of unity and oneness. When we recognize that we're all part of the same clan, we love because everyone's an extension of ourselves. And therefore, as others do well, we do well for ourselves. But the thing that we have to be careful about when we get into the vibration of compassion is compassion isn't about being liked. It's about liking others. It's not about the idea of being accepted by others, but it's the idea of accepting others. So we have to look at the law of intention when someone's using compassion, because it's not an ego-centric ideal. Compassion is a unifying principle. In Buddhism, they define compassion as suspending your own happiness for a moment so that you recognize the suffering in others and wishing them happiness. Now, as we become compassionate beings, it's important that we don't lower our vibration to get into being a martyr or a victim, and honoring and supporting someone's lower choices that way. We should always see the good and honor the good and recognize it so that they can alleviate their suffering. Now, Buddha wisely said, when you come in to have this life experience, expect there to be painful situations. But suffering is a choice. Suffering is the resistance to what is. And when we suffer, we tend to connect more with our egotistical self, and we tend to judge and separate, and we get into a place of heaviness, of darkness. Now, suffering has a purpose because it is one of the flavors of life we come to taste. But to maintain it, to keep it, is a choice that you might want to deny yourself. What's so important about compassion is it really helps you expand your awareness. It helps you to truly connect with your heart center, and it helps you to understand your divine purpose. Now, Buddhists will say that compassion is not just a state of heart, but it's also a state of mind. And one of the trainings that I've spent time with is Science of Mind, and really appreciate Ernest Holmes' work. And Ernest Holmes teaches us that mind is the builder. And in the Buddhist culture, they don't have a word for emotions. They have mind because they believe that the mind is the vibration that then causes emotions to occur, so they see them as one. So think about that. When you're thinking about things, you tend to have an emotional response energetically to it. And these things then influence your whole beingness, because as Ernest Holmes teaches us in Science of Mind, what you resonate and vibrate with, you attract to you. And so if you're resonating with jazz, you're going to attract people that like jazz. But if you turn to classical, you're going to bring in a whole different group of people. So what you think, what you say, what you believe, what you feel is going to influence your perception of your life, but also who you're inviting in to enjoy this experience. When it comes to compassion, it's really important that first and foremost, that you have compassion for yourself. Just as I said earlier, loving yourself. Compassion of self is extremely important, because when you have compassion for yourself, you help yourself not get into the lower choices that some others are making, so that you have the ability to teach, to coach, to lead people out of their suffering. One of the most challenging experiences I had 10 years ago, I was a dean of students at Savannah College of Art and Design. Overnight, I had 6,000 students that were my responsibility. And the students tended to like to have behaviors that weren't real favorable from midnight till 4 in the morning. So for 7 years, I didn't get much sleep. But what was so amazing about being in that position was helping myself understand the concept of compassion, because I really had to learn to love myself and put myself in situations, whether it was suicide or date rape or just general conflicts, students having problems more that they brought with them to school relative to identifying themselves, their sexual orientation, their religious beliefs, their political beliefs. And I had to be honest with myself and really understand myself that I can help someone, but it was important that I didn't participate in their suffering. And that's the challenge when we get into compassion, is I want to be helpful and I want to lead them from here. So I have to put my own armor on first. And I think this is when a great book I read this week on Lauren Lander on the Lost Art of Compassion is he spends a lot of time in his book, he's a psychologist, talking about the idea that we have to prepare ourselves and take care of ourselves before we truly can go out and help others. Because what can happen is your ego can overtake you and you can have an unconscious resistance to the work you're doing, but you also can get in a state of depression. And he noticed that a lot of his patients were actually, they were nurses, doctors, alternative practitioners. There were people out helping, and they were depressed because they were getting into the suffering and they couldn't let it go. And so he has a formula for helping you to overcome what he calls the barriers of compassion. And the first barrier of compassion that he talks about is the idea of wanting to be liked. So again, if you go to what is your desire for helping others, if your motivation is to truly help someone get from their suffering, that's wonderful. But if you're doing it because you have low self-esteem, low self-respect, and you want to be liked by others, so you'll go and do things. You know, some people's intention is they want to appear saintly, or they want to appear as someone helpful. Recently, I was doing a little channel surfing, and I saw the movie The Help. Most of you have seen that. And a great example of looking at a group of ladies' intentions is, remember the rich ladies get together and they have fundraisers to help the colored community. But look at how they truly treated their help. And so without judging them, you can see that their idea of compassion was more they wanted to look great to the other ladies in town. It was all about status. So we want to make sure that we're not in there for that idea. A second barrier when it comes to compassion is to make sure you take care of yourself. And again, a common theme that Dr. Lander found out with his research is that a lot of people that are caretakers were compromising their own physical well-being, emotional well-being, and it's really important that you take care of yourself. You know, we live in a fast-paced society, and we're surrounded by technology and so forth, but it's really important to take time to connect with yourself and your higher self. And as we had a beautiful meditation, just to have that moment to feel the essence of who we are is very, very important that you do that. Because there truly is an interdependence between compassion for others and compassion for yourself, because we're all part of the same. So remember that compassion is about freeing others of suffering, but that includes yourself too. You're not supposed to be here to suffer, despite what we've been taught for centuries. I was raised in a really conservative Catholic church, and if you didn't suffer that week, you weren't close to God, was the belief. It's like, really? No meat on Friday, really? Buddha, being one of the great teachers in talking about compassion, he has what's known as the Four Noble Truths. Are you familiar with that aspect? So what Buddha says is, first, just recognize that suffering, we all go through a sense of suffering. We all have losses. We all have conflicts. We go through aging processes. We have death and disease. But the important thing to recognize is, what is your desire? What is your craving? What is your wanting? What are you attached to? Because he says that suffering is caused by this attachment. And if you can identify that feeling of being incomplete, like I have to have this, you can feel the resistance. Any moment of any day, as soon as I feel a little twinge of suffering, I know I'm resisting something. And what I try to do is immediately eliminate it, because that gets rid of the suffering. Thank goodness for dark chocolate. But he basically says this craving, this desire, it's all delusional. And it's something you have control over. And then he talks about the sensation of suffering, and that's just addressing and letting go. You hear the words, letting go, release, just be, trust. That's what all the masters teach us. But when we're in that place, we truly can then realign with the essence of who we truly are, which are compassionate beings. What Jesus the Christ taught us through his teachings is, first of all, he teaches the law of love. And John says in 15:22, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." And I was an altar boy for many years, and I had many, many questions about the whole idea of how Christ was presented to me. And I used to have to go to Sunday or catechism class on Tuesdays. And I was often the one that was sent in the corner because I asked questions that the nuns couldn't answer. For example, one day the nuns asked, I just had a lesson about dinosaurs in school, so then we went to catechism to learn about Adam and Eve. And so I just raised my hand and I said, well, I don't understand, where's the dinosaurs fit in here? And the answer was, Satan put those bones here so that to try to get you to be a disbeliever, go sit in the corner. So, but I knew there was a greater aspect of it. And what I've learned through teachings, Jesus being a wonderful teacher, is Christ is a state of consciousness. And what Jesus teaches over and over when he's saying that you love one another as I've loved you, he's talking about that higher sense of consciousness. It's that beingness of being the lover, the archetype of the heart chakra. Because when we're the lover, there's no judgment, there's no restrictions, there's no obligations. It's free. It's just freely given. I often call it puppy dog love, because if you could step on the dog's tail, you could forget to feed them, they still love you. There's no conditions. The second aspect of Christ's teachings has to do with forgiveness. And there's a passage in the Bible, Matthew 18:22. Then Peter came up and said to Jesus, "Lord, how often will my brother sin against me and I forgive him? As many as 7 times?" Jesus said to him, "I do not say to you 7 times, but 70 times 7. And again, this phrase is so important because I really feel it has a lot to do with self-forgiveness. Because when you detach, as Buddha taught us, and you love, as Jesus taught us, you truly are in a place where you can freely and openly be compassionate. And compassion is really, really important in your journey of enlightenment, because it is, again, one of your tools. It's one of the mechanisms to get you where you want to go. And that's to remember truly who you are. Many people talk about the earth plane being a school, but I see it as a place of remembrance. It's a place to remember who we truly are. And it's a fun place to come and play and taste all the different flavors. One of my favorite teachers to study is Carl Jung. And Carl Jung's archetypical patterns were important in the creation of my recent book, The Power of I Am, Aligning the Chakras of Consciousness. Because what he teaches us through these archetypical patterns is that we have choices. But when we come up with a specific pattern, he shows how it affects us emotionally, physically, mentally, astrologically, and spiritually. So it talks to many, many deep levels. And again, when we go to compassion, compassion is all generated through the heart chakra. And we strive to be the archetypical pattern of the lover. But what competes with that is the actor, the actress. And the actor and actress wears a mask because they feel vulnerable to love. They feel like if they show who they truly are, they won't be loved. And it's interesting to watch people as they start to date, because they tend to keep their face hidden a little bit. Like if they know all these things about me, oh my gosh, they're going to run. So we tend to wear this little mask until we can be in a place of really loving ourselves and trusting in that love that we have for ourselves. A component of loving ourselves, though, is, again, having compassion. And compassion is the understanding that not everyone is like you, that not everyone has to be like you, but there is a unifying aspect of ourselves in our soul selves, that we are all of the same stuff. We're all light. Light is the essence of our being, and love is the essence of our being. So what I'd like to do is to read from my book a prayer of the heart chakra. These prayers were channeled to me from my Native American guides in the canyons of Palm Springs. But this one is all about the compassionate lover. And so just close your eyes. And when it comes to prayer, I like the idea of you feeling, like just feel the prayer. Compassionate lover consciousness, I embrace your caring affections. Gratify my heart with thoughtful understanding for all. Satisfy me with sincere kindness and consideration. Allow me to believe in the generosity of genuine love. May I freely offer and openly receive the friendship of love. With cordial appreciation, I love for the sake of loving. I proclaim that love is the essence of my being. So I gift you that prayer today in hope that when you go out into the world, that you share the vibration, the highest frequency on the planet, and that's the love that's in your heart. You know, again, nature very wisely demonstrates these concepts and principles. And what scientists have found is that the things on the planet that resonate with the highest frequency are roses. And to get up to the bud of the rose, there are thorns. And in order to understand the true essence and beauty of what joy and happiness and love is, we have to prick our finger a couple times, because then we have something to compare things, relatively speaking. Now, the nice thing is duality only exists in the physical world. But once we get into our higher selves, our higher consciousnesses, there is only one way, and that is love. And, you know, I just share with you, don't resist, let go, allow it to come through you. And as you walk through life in this higher vibration of love, know that you heal on many levels that you'll never be aware of. That little smile might have encouraged that one person to go home and hug their child. Compassion is very, very powerful. It's very healing. And when you walk in it, it's a great place to be. And it's the natural state for you to be in. So thank you kindly for listening to my words, and namaste.